Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here, Smart Business Moves. I've got my co-host for the week, RJ Patel. Hey, RJ, how are you today?
Hey, Tom. Doing great, thanks.
We got our light blue shirts going on here today.
Joe didn't get the memo.
I didn't, I guess.
I'm sorry, man. I was telling RJ.
I'm sporting my company pride, though. Here we are.
Oh, there's a little blue in there.
Yeah.
Are those new shirts?
Oh no, we've had these for a while. I like to tell my crew and my wife I went clothes shopping in our uniform closet. So it's nice when you can do that.
Yeah, you don't have to think too much about what you're going to be wearing. I was telling RJ, I've got a royal blue for Castle Keepers, a light blue for Maid Central, and black for Modern Cleaning. And it's just, whatever strikes my fancy that day.
Right, but it reduces your choice set way down, so it's one less decision to make.
Yeah, and working from home.
It's a Steve Jobs thing. It's a cue out of his book, right?
Yeah.
And working from home, I only have to worry about from the waist up.
That's true.
Please don't stand up.
No, we'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. Joe Walsh is obviously our guest today. We all know Joe. He's been a frequent guest of Smart Business Moves, but it's been a while, Joe. You've been busy, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been busy reopening the business. So I think I was able to join for a few shows, a few webinars earlier during this whole COVID crisis. But for the past couple of months, I have my calendar on the wall behind me so I can look actually and reference this, because you lose track of time when you're doing this, don't you? You just sort of, I don't know if that happens to anybody else, but I just get totally lost in what I'm doing, and months go by.
In years.
Yeah, years even.
Truly.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been busy reopening the bit. We closed for 7 weeks. We've been busy reopening the business and getting things rolling again. So
I guess that's our purpose for doing all of this. So I'm glad somebody is doing that. Thank you, Joe. We as an industry, we appreciate your contribution and that effort. We're going to be talking about that in just a minute, but we want to just talk about what we're going to be doing for the balance of the week real quick. Joe's here, and he's going to be, got a lot of stories to tell. We could go back to when COVID first started, I guess, and Joe's been busy doing a lot of different things, and what we've learned through the reopening process. I'm looking forward to that. And tomorrow is Deal Day. We did our first one 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, and we've got a number of vendors who service the house cleaning industry, products and services. They get an opportunity to do a 4-minute pitch, and they offer us a deal that's special to Smart Business Moves, and the deal is good for basically 2 days. And it's a lot of fun. It's rapid fire, bang, bang, bang. If you missed it 2 weeks ago, we had fun, and hope you can join us tomorrow for that. And Thursday is On the Spot. That is our rapid fire Q&A session where RJ, myself, and our secret guest each get 1 minute to answer your most pressing questions. And this is the point where we're supposed to have a hint as to who our secret guest is. Our hint yesterday was it's a guy who runs a cleaning business. We didn't put a lot of thought into that. Do you have a hint, RJ? I mean,
I have a question.
Okay.
Maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't. Is he an ARCC member?
He is an ARCC member.
Right. So for the people that are listening, it's a good time to guess. If you go through our membership directory, right, it should be easy. 65% are women owned. So therefore, you're only having to deal with 35%.
35%. It's a good point.
I'll give you another one. He is well known for his athletic accomplishments. But boom. You got to guess if you want. We won't tell you if you get it right or not, but go ahead and guess. It's fun anyway. So when Thursday rolls around, for those of you who guess right, you can say, "Yeah, I got it," or you can,
What's the incentive, Tom?
What's the incentive? Just the challenge of getting it right.
People want to win things. Come on.
The intrinsic value of being a winner, just knowing that you won, that you guessed right.
Oh, we'll have to wrap it up with a deal of the day and get something from that.
Now, well, we'll see. We're not into everybody gets a trophy, though. Sometimes just a pat on the back and good guess should be enough.
Sounds good.
I'm old school. How you been, Joe?
Been good. Yeah, I've been good. I actually just took a week off. And it was until we were off Saturday to the following Sunday, and it took until 7 days into the vacation for me to actually relax. So I got 1 day of relaxation. So that's good. I think that's winning.
Were you working? I mean, what causes stress when you're on vacation?
Because you're thinking about it even though you're not there, and sometimes it's hard to be on vacation in that way because you just want to be checking that email, or you just want to be checking your phone, or you want to be calling to check in, and you're trying to give the business the space it needs and yourself the space it needs, and it's hard. You're worrying about it. You're business owners, you're thinking about it all the time. So
did you indulge?
When you're in the middle of a pandemic.
Did you jump into email? Did you log in and check your schedule? Were you doing all the things you're not supposed to do?
Nope.
But you still just fretted over it for the entire week.
Oh, a little bit, yeah. Well, then you're not directly fretting over it, but you ever go on vacation and you find yourself making little projects while you're on vacation, in the vacation, so I was coming up with
projects. I'm going to update that policy manual. I've been meaning to.
I was coming up. So we went to this, we have a condo on a ski mountain in the northern part of Maine. And we went up there to get away for the week and enjoy it. And I started inventing projects that I had to do with the condo and inventing projects that I had to do. We have an 18-foot power boat that we like to take around to the different lakes in Maine and all that. And then I was inventing projects on the power boat that I had to work on and things like that. You got to stay busy.
Yeah, you have to stay busy. That's legit.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, I think I feel a live show coming on that 18-foot boat. Don't you?
Yeah. Especially this time of year, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. And where we actually bought a vacation home, it's in the mountains in Maine, way up north, and it's routinely 10 to 20 degrees cooler up there than it is in the southern part of the state. So right now it's 92 degrees in Portland, Maine, which is really hot for us. I know for some of you who might be watching, that's not a big deal, but for us, that's super hot. Not everybody has air conditioning. A lot of people don't actually, so it makes cleaning in this weather is not easy. But in any event, it's 72 degrees up at our mountain place, so it's 20-degree difference. So when we rent it on Airbnb, and when people ask, does it have air conditioning? I say, yes, it does. Cool mountain breezes. Just open the windows. You don't need air conditioning.
Wow, that's crazy. 92 degrees in Portland, Maine. What's the normal temperature there?
I mean, normally at this time of year, you'd be in the low 80s. But those of you that might be on the East Coast, it's the humidity that'll get you. It's a little different than the heat in Arizona and New Mexico and the western states where it's a little drier. But in any event, we didn't come here probably talk about the weather and talk about my vacation home up north.
Why not? I think we're more accurate than the weathermen.
Yeah, I can look out the window. So
I know Joe, myself, and Matt Ricketts basically formed a COVID support group early on. It was it March maybe?
Yep.
And we did a phone call every morning at 9:30, and for a while, we didn't even know what to talk about. We didn't just, it was a matter of just kind of getting our arms around COVID, and started developing strategies and plans and sharing information. It was really good. And it was good for the business, but it was probably, just as important, if not more so, from a psychological standpoint of, not wanting to jump out a window.
Yeah.
You want to share a little bit, Joe, about where we've been and where we are?
Yeah, so we actually started talking regularly. I started talking regularly with you and Matt in mid-March, and it was I remember why, because I started reaching out because I was really I wouldn't quite say I was panicked, that'd be overstating it, but definitely the most nervous I've been since I started my business, basically, and because I could see it. This was in the week of March 9th. So March 9th to the 13th, it was starting to look like this is going to get really ugly, I think. And then very quickly, the situation devolved. And by Monday, the 16th of March, I was, that's when I was reaching out to my connections in the industry and saying, I'm getting on Facebook groups, in the industry and saying, hey, is anyone else closing? Like what's happening with, where you are and everything. And if we can think back to that time, it was really nerve-wracking because we didn't really know what to expect. Back then we were looking at Italy, and we were looking at the countries that were maybe ahead of us a little bit, and we had to kind of extrapolate out what we thought might happen here. And
It happened in New York, and we were just, worst case scenario, we're all going to die. We didn't know.
Yeah. Or like we just had visions of like hospitals overflowing in our city and things like that. It was scary. So I made the decision to close. I think I was one of the first ones that I knew of in the industry to make the decision to close, but a lot of people followed not long after, and some people didn't close at all. And everybody has different reasons, and also every locality is different. So, but where I was, it was March 18th, I made the decision to close, and it was because I got to the point where it was costing me more money to keep the business open than it would have to just close it down completely. And so I didn't have a quick and easy way to figure out how to fix that besides closing at that time, because we also didn't know if it was safe to stay open. And so there was a safety concern and there was a financial concern. So that was back in March. And I know, Tom, you closed not too long after that, and Matt closed around the same time.
And looking back on it, a lot of people didn't close. We kind of had some discussions about if we had to do over again. We do something different. I guess it depends. If we knew then what we know now, maybe we would have done things different. We just didn't know. We've used this term unprecedented event like every day on Smart Business Moves, and it still is an unprecedented event, but it was more unprecedented then because we had basically zero data.
Right. And we had thinking back on it, we didn't understand the virus very well. We didn't understand the risks very well. We didn't understand the risks we were taking very well. And, there was an argument to be made, and I was being advised by more than one person that it's worth considering shutting down just for the liability piece of it. Because you don't want anyone getting COVID, and, because at the time we didn't understand what the risks were and how to manage them, because the guidance on best practices was shifting still, and there was just a lot of new information flooding at us. And so, thought it best to, land the plane, because we're flying into the mountains in the middle of a massive, fog bank, and it was like, we just need to land until this clears. So, that's kind of the analogy I felt in my head, and we're gonna just wait a couple of weeks. But we knew really early, right away, it was going to be more than 2 weeks. And so, ultimately it was 7 weeks. And I spent that 6.5 weeks doing some commiserating with Tom and Matt and some other business owners, but also working on a lot of advocacy work for small businesses to try and make the paycheck protection program make more sense and work for us. And had a lot of success there, actually. I saw it as a valuable use of my time as a business owner because I was shut down. And to actually, part of my strategy was to advocate politically, because I felt like if we can get some of these changes made, my business is going to be in a much better position at the other side. And it worked. We got the changes made that we were pushing for. We extended the PPP period from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, and we increased the amount people can spend on rent from 25% to 40%, or I should say the amount they can spend on non-payroll related expenses. So
you were like talking to your senators, like key people, like Collins, Senator Collins was one of the authors of the PPP.
That's right. Senator Collins is a Republican senator from Maine, and she is widely respected as a bipartisan type of a senator, really works across the aisle. And in any event, she had a big hand in crafting the original legislation. She was one of the co-authors. So I ended up getting connected with the guy, her policy point person who crafted the policy. It was so cool. So I ended up having this talk to the guy for an hour, and it was really interesting. And I have to say that my conversations with Tom and Matt really helped prepare my mind, because we were really geeking out on the details of this stuff, and it really helped prepare my mind to be able to be spot on with questions, because I was getting challenged a lot by the press I was talking to, and also by the staff members of the senators and representatives, and it was
like
great.
National press. I mean, you were like all over. How many national?
So I ended up being the story. I ended up getting in the Wall Street Journal. I was in the Associated Press, which meant I appeared in at least the Chicago Tribune and the Hartford Courant. Those are the two papers I know about that story ran in, the Associated Press story. But I ended up on the front page of our two big statewide papers in Maine, just telling the story about how the PPP isn't going to work. And then I started beating that drum April 1st. Which was only 2 weeks after we closed. And then at the end of April, you started hearing people saying those things. And so it was pretty cool to be on the leading edge of that. And,
Joe, are you saying the PPP wasn't going to work the way it was written originally and that they had to tweak it, or the entire concept of PPP was not going to work?
No, I was not trying to fight that battle as far as just scrap the whole thing, because when you're trying to distribute $350 billion quickly, I think it was a pretty good vehicle to begin with, but you had to tweak the 8-week thing. Wasn't going to work because those of us that were closed, you didn't have any staff to pay. So you were supposed to pay them to keep them off unemployment, but then they were making more if they went on unemployment. So the whole thing became a mess. So we needed to modify the program so it fit the scope of the disaster that we're facing. So that's hence extending the time period for forgiveness to 24 weeks rather than 8 weeks and things like that. So I've had a lot of success with that, and it's enabled, it's certainly stabilized our finances now. So it was a good strategy. Ultimately, was the reason I was saying that, to focus on that for a while. Yeah.
And on the Smart Business Moves resource page, there's some download templates if you want to, reach out to your state, legislators or your federal representatives, congressmen and senators that we used for that campaign. But they can be used for a lot of different, campaigns with some tweaks. And who knows, our folks in DC are haggling over a new bill now. We might need to fire up the Grassroots campaign lobbying machine again, depending upon what they come up with. You ready?
Right. Well, there's definitely, this week is a critical week, and you may have read in the headlines today, the Republicans released their plan yesterday. The Democrats, their plan is actually 3 different bills, I believe, but the Democrats have theirs. but not surprisingly, the Democrats want to spend $3 trillion and the Republicans want to spend $1 trillion. Somewhere in there is an answer, and there are some key things that are new problems that now need to be looked at and worked out. And I don't know if anyone else is having trouble with this, but I know one of our biggest challenges has been getting staff, because people are in Maine, people are making $1,000 a week on average on unemployment.
Right.
Our people are. And so, one of the things that I'm going to start advocating for this week, and this week is the week to do it, is there either needs to be some kind of change to that benefit of the $600 extra, or we as businesses need to be able to use some sort of, or get some sort of tax credit so that we can pay people a differential to offset the
difference
from unemployment. Like to me, especially for service businesses like ours, that's really important to be able to do that, because it's staffing that's holding back our growth right now, not demand. So it may become another important business strategy to do more advocacy. So
we might have to get those templates out and update them.
Yeah.
Joe, speaking of a business strategy, did your local government or state government recognize the cleaning industry as an essential business?
Yes. And in Maine was a little slower than some other states to officially recognize it, but our local our local municipality recognized cleaning as essential before the state did. Unfortunately, our municipality is pretty small. We operate in, like a greater area. So there's about 12 towns we serve.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had to wait for the state guidance to become more clear, but yeah, we're essential. And if non-essential businesses are ordered to close again, which I really hope doesn't happen, but I'd say there's a reasonable chance it could happen again, especially in the winter. And as we get into the winter in Maine and we're all inside more, I wouldn't close down again. I wouldn't handle it the same way I did before, because I know a lot more now. So, we would be able to stay open. We might have to cut back operations depending on demand or whatever, but we would stay open. So I thought it was really telling that I read an interview in one of the national papers. Now, I can't remember if it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, or it was one of the two of those, I believe. And they did an interview with the 5 or 6 foremost COVID-19 experts in the country. So it was like Anthony Fauci and a couple of other people whose names you'd recognize. And out of the 5 people, 3 of them said that the only person they let in their house is their cleaning person. And that includes Anthony Fauci. So Dr. Fauci, the head guy on all of this, the only person he allows in his house is the person who cleans for them. And I was like, if that's not the best endorsement for our business, I don't know what is. Like, it's the only thing they're still doing is cleaning services.
There you go.
You think you could find that article for us? I'd like to share that with everybody, because that's
big.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to find that and dig it up. I almost shared it on social media, and I'm just, I'm not the best at sharing stuff on social media. So you should look for me. You'll see it's a little sporadic, but anyway, I'm going to make a note to share that. I definitely will.
So Joe, when you decided to close, how many staff did you have? And then when you decided to reopen, how many of those actually came back?
When we closed, we were at 32 full-time people and 2 part-time people, and we were hiring for 3 open positions. So, we were a big enough company to have, what would that be, like 37 or so? But when we came back, about a third of our employees came back. We brought people back in waves. So about a third of the people came back first. And we brought people back who were the most skilled and the most had the best, basically overall performance. We kind of brought people back, and that's our company policy anyway. I've never had to use it, but if we lay people off, we bring people back based on their skill set and on their reliability to date and all that kind of stuff. So we had basically 3 waves of employees, and that happened over the course of 4 weeks. 6 weeks. So we did one wave of employees, and then we waited 2 weeks, then did another wave, waited 2 weeks, and did another wave. And in the end, we came back with about half of our staff, a little more than half of our staff ended up coming back. And we had, and this is a risk you take when you close, and this is one of the things that was keeping me up at night. I mean, I didn't sleep properly until this week. So from the time this started, the middle of March, I didn't get a good night's sleep until Saturday night, this past Saturday night when I relaxed. So that, would have been, how many months is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 months? Because you're just worried all the time. Like, you work so hard to get these employees and get these customers, and you're just losing them, and you don't have, you're just kind of watching it happen. Doing everything you can, obviously, to not let that happen, but it's a little nerve-wracking. In any event, we lost some employees because of childcare issues. We lost some employees because the closure, I think, kind of had them reassessing what they were doing with themselves. And so we actually had, people just seek different employment. We had people move back home, like maybe they weren't from the Portland, Maine area and originally and they moved back home with their parents, or they moved out of state to be, we had one couple, for example, who said, we've been wanting to move back to Massachusetts, so this is a good excuse for us to do it. So they just left. So a lot of different reasons, but, about a third didn't end up coming back. So, we're hiring again now. And then we had some that we chose not to return because they had performance issues going into it. So
this was a good time to weed it out too.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity. You take it. So where are you now relative to where you were before all this COVID stuff happened?
So we measure our size as a company, and when we talk about in terms of how many staff we have, I have to actually think about that. That's why I have to look up to think about that, because we don't really talk about FTEs. A more useful number I found in the cleaning business is to talk about shifts. So, because really what you're selling when you're scheduling out your week or your month or whatever, when you're building your schedule, you're really selling days. Yes, you're selling time, but the way that we schedule that in this business is we, assign somebody a schedule, and it's based on the number of shifts they work in a week. So we count shift capacity. And so our shift capacity number is the total number of shifts that we could run in a week if no one was sick and no one took vacation, or, no one called out at all. So that's what a shift capacity is. Now, obviously that never happens. You know what I mean? So you never actually run the total number of your shift capacity. There's always, people call out for whatever reason, or people take vacation or things, whatever. But shift capacity is a way for you to know how big you kind of are as a company. So before this, we were at 150. Well, we were at 135 right before we closed, but like I said, we had 3 open positions, and each full-time person is 5 shifts. So we went from 135 to 150 down to 75 now. So we're a little bit more than half, or around half of where we were before.
Would you say you're supply constrained? That you always have, too many homes and not enough technicians, or more technicians and not enough homes. Too much of one thing, not enough of something else. Labor's your problem now, right? If you had more labor, you could be cleaning more homes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a wait list. We have a long wait list of customers that we could dip into at any time. So we should be, for the number of customers we're serving, we should be at 90 for our shift capacity number. So divide that by 5, and that'll give you your FTE equivalents in the field.
You're being more productive, more efficient. You're getting a better return off your human capital.
Well, yes and no. Like, we should be at 90 shifts right now, but we're at 75. So that means that, like, my field supervisors are cleaning. And stuff like that. It's not, the business isn't as stable operationally as it would be if we were fully staffed. So things are a little tight. But what we're doing is, it is forcing us to come back to your question, Tom, or your point there is, we are spending a lot of time looking at how we can be even more efficient. So I'll give you an example. as a result of COVID and social distancing, we have gone to an all solo model. So we were running teams before, teams of 2. And if you had a trainee, you'd be 3 people in a car. So we don't do that anymore because of social distancing. So now everybody is a solo cleaner. So if you're training someone, you have 2 people in a home, but they have to follow in a vehicle. So we don't have 2 people riding in the same vehicle ever. And so the switching to solos has actually opened up some interesting possibilities with scheduling. So one of the things we're doing to be more efficient, for example, is we're transitioning all of our customers away from having keys. And so right now we hold keys for people. And we're going to make all of our customers either have a keypad on their front door or have a lock, like a lock box with the key in it.
Mm-hmm.
That way we're not holding keys in the office. And we're also eliminating paper checks. I know this has been something I've wanted to do for a while, and COVID is giving me a good excuse to do it. So I'm saying it's less stuff that we have to touch, right? But it's also enables the keys and the checks enable our staff members to not have to come back to the office every day. So, and that'll be the more experienced people won't have to check in every day. And so that's going to make them much more efficient because they are eliminating the drive from the office to their first job and eliminating the drive from that last job back to the office. And so it essentially, over the course of a week, that'll free up at least 2 more cleanings worth of time.
So when you don't have enough labor and when you're, building up a waiting list, that sucks because that's revenue you could be realizing. But it's a really good opportunity because when you make these changes, there's always that nagging concern in the back of your mind, where you get pushback, where you lose some customers. But if you got more customers, you know what to do with anyway. Now's the time to do it.
Well, right. And so like the paper checks and the keys, we've been hanging on to that because I've been doing this since 2007. That's when I started it. And back then there was a lot more checks still. And also the keys thing was different. Like electronic keypads weren't as common back then. I mean, it was actually pretty rare back then. And so these are legacy things that I've been wanting to change for a while. And this just gave me a great excuse to do it. And I'm also way less concerned, like you said, Tom. If somebody wants to leave our service because we won't let them keep a key with us, then I have a waiting list that's really long that I could tap into. I'm not that concerned about it. I ultimately, honestly, don't think we're going to lose anyone. I think we'll have some old timers who will gripe about it. And I don't mean necessarily old people. I just mean like people who have been with us for a long time might gripe about it, but I think ultimately they'll stay with us.
Be careful, Joe.
I think
we're providing a really great service. And so, you just have to have confidence in that,
And I agree, Joe. If you're going to make any kind of change right now, call it using COVID.
Yeah.
But now's the time to do it.
It is. So the other interesting change that we're looking at, because we're labor constrained, I'm just going to back up for a minute. I think one of the things that COVID has done is it has some people thinking about what they're doing with their time, because and I know this from talking to employees and also just talking to friends, and I don't know if other folks have had the same experience, but people just came off a period where they were home for 6 weeks. I'm thinking of my employees, and they had basically unlimited time with their families. And now for some, they were definitely ready to come back to work.
When, depends on your family, right?
Right. I think most people were actually ready to come back to work, but it does have people thinking about, like, geez, it was so nice to actually have time, to do some things, and people rekindled hobbies and things like that. So I think a work-life balance is more important than ever, is what I'm seeing. And I see that as a trend just in all labor markets, not just the labor markets that we're in. So one of the things that we're looking at as we overhaul our schedule is it possible to do a 4-day work week in our business? And so that's something that would be a massive change. But if we can figure out a way to really stand out from the crowd in the labor market, that's how I think we're going to unlock a lot of value in this business because I've almost always been labor constrained. And that's going to vary from market to market. I know that not every market across the country has the labor constrained problem. But in my market in Portland, Maine, it's definitely labor constrained. And so, I'm trying to think, how can we really stand out? And can I make this work from a business perspective? And the jury's still out, but we're working hard on seeing if we can make it happen. And what that would mean is like 4 longer days. So we'd be looking at 4 10s, 4 9s, or 4
Would
10s.
your entire operation be closed for 3 days a week, or would people be working different days?
People would work different days. So you'd have like a Monday through Thursday crew and a Tuesday through Friday crew. Like half the staff would work that. And then I have 2 field supervisors because before we closed, we had, I can't remember now, but like I said, I think in shifts. So, but it was, say about 10 to 14 technicians per field supervisor. So like we needed 2 of them. I think there's about 10 per field supervisor. So we needed 2 field supervisors. Now the field supervisors are cleaning part-time because I don't really need both of them, but I don't want to like lose them. So I have to make them partially billable. So they're working part-time, they're cleaning part-time in the field. But in any event, we would have 1 field supervisor work Monday through Thursday and have their crew work the same schedule. The other field supervisor Tuesday through Friday and have their crew work that schedule. I had my field supervisors on 4 10s for a while. We had things structured a little differently. It ultimately didn't work, but it wasn't because of the 4 10s. They loved the 4 10s. It just didn't work for supervisory reasons. But I can tell you that it's a pretty popular idea, but I don't know if it's going to work from a business perspective. So we'll see.
So that's part of your strategy to deal with the shortage of labor. I guess we're kind of in a hole here now. The federal $600 a week is curtailed for the moment. They're going to come up with something different, but we don't know what that's going to be. Have you seen any increase in qualified candidates?
Yes, a little. Part of the increase is definitely due to people knowing that that's ending, but part of it is also due to so what's starting to happen now, we've just onboarded like 4 of the best candidates I've seen come through in a while, like really highly qualified, professional. They're already professional housekeepers. They're working in hotels and been doing it. It's their career. And I love these kind of applicants. They're great. They tend to stay with us for a really long time. They appreciate the steady hours and steady work environment of a residential instead of a hotel. And so, and the Monday through Friday work schedule, so they tend to like really like the work. But we have a hard time getting them away from the hotels. So, but they're coming now because of the way their employers handled COVID. So we're actually getting people who have followed us on social media and who started to read these blog posts that I was doing that I didn't think anyone was reading. I just have no way of knowing if somebody's reading my blog posts or not on my little website. But they just appreciated how we were handling COVID and how transparent we were being, and it attracted them to finally pull the trigger and apply. So we had 2 people who have been looking at us for a while, but just didn't quite, pulling the trigger. They weren't quite there. And then 2 that their employer, who was a hotel, they felt handled COVID so poorly, and things have not been going well since they reopened, that they just decided, we think we feel safer being with you, basically, because it's about safety right now. It's really about safety.
There's a term called passive candidates, and that's kind of what you described. That active candidate is somebody that needs a job and they're looking for a job, but through your blog posts and social media, if you're reaching the pool of people that could be candidates to work for you, after a while they go, you know what, these guys really rock. They may be a better place to work than the place I'm currently working, and they decide to apply. And this, the theory from an HR standpoint, a recruiting standpoint, is that's where you get your highest caliber candidates.
And that is definitely true. I mean, I almost without exception, the people that find us that way are better, end up being better employees, longer term employees, better fits. So our biggest thing right now, to just come back to it, is like figuring out how we can really stand out in the labor market, because I'm assuming that the folks on this call either own cleaning businesses or are maybe have just started or are thinking about it. But if you are trying to recruit employees in the cleaning business, you go on the boards and see the other cleaning services advertising. You're kind of competing with people who aren't necessarily upfront about what people are going to make when they work for them. And so, they'll put inflated numbers on there. So I just kind of realized I'm not going to try and play this game on wages, because that's a tough game to win. And we already pay really good wages, but it's got to be something different than that. And so that's where the 4-day work week came from. So stay tuned. We'll see if I can make it work. But you know what it's doing? The whole project has gotten me really deep into the schedule. And, I haven't gotten deep into the schedule in probably 5 years. And it's really a great exercise, I have to say, for me to get in there. And we're coming up with all kinds of like new ways to measure our success in scheduling. Something else I've learned from doing this for 13 years is that probably the number one complaint you'll get from employees is about scheduling. It's probably the number one kind of area that, and this is across industries, not just cleaning, but anybody who supervises frontline employees, the schedule matters so much. And it's so easy to do badly in this business. It's so easy to do a bad job on the schedule. It's just because there's so many different things to move around, and you know how it is. You're trying to match customer preferences and geography and employee skill sets, and there's just a lot of moving parts. So
do you think that this new 4-day schedule, or perhaps even a 3-day schedule, I know in my county here, luckily my kids don't go to the public school, the elementary, middle, or high school, but they decided not to go back to school. Mm-hmm. Everything's going to be online. How do you think that will affect the scheduling when it comes to the moms or the dads that want to work?
That's going to be really tough. I mean, a 4-day work week isn't going to fix that, unfortunately. I mean, I think because if parents have to be home with like in our industry, our employees can't work from home, right? They have to be mm-hmm. there at the job site to do the work. We joked about that actually in our company, like, oh, maybe we can clock in to clean remotely, but obviously that's not possible. So I'm not trying to solve for that, RJ, because there's nothing that I can really do. I mean, we're going to be flexible. So like, for example, a couple of the school districts in our area are talking about doing like partial return to school. So like maybe two or 3 days a week, the kids will go to school. And so we'll work with our long-term employees to say like, yep, if you can only work 2 days a week, that's fine. We'd love to have you, and we'd mm-hmm. work on a work share maybe thing with unemployment. There's work share programs in most states. So you can do kind of partial unemployment, partial employment. Like we're preparing to do that. But the 4-day work week isn't really in response to that piece. It's more in response to helping our staff, have more work-life balance and finding a way to give them 52 extra days off a year without it costing the business anything. Kind of what I'm shooting for.
I mean, there's certainly just so much unknown out there that, schools opening and what is that going to look like? Are they going to open? That's going to be a headwind. On the other side of it, I think it's pretty, well, who knows, but it appears that the economic incentive not to work is going to be reduced, and that's a good thing. And the unemployment rate is still double digits. And, I saw an interview today by the former CDC head and Michael Osterholm. He's infectious control expert out of the University of Minnesota. They were both explaining that COVID is going to be with us for a long, long time, years and years. I mean, if we think that, we're going to get a vaccine by the end of the year, and we might, and that's going to help, but the idea of us not, social distancing and wearing masks and not wanting to travel, those behavior changes are going to be with us arguably for the rest of our lives. And I'll share a link to it. And I guess where I'm going with that is, all of that is going to structurally change the jobs that are going to be out there moving forward. And wouldn't you think that that's going to make a larger job market for us? More candidates?
It could in the long run, but I can only deal with the next month or so right now, because I'm thinking about.
You got a waiting list and telling them, well, a year from now, the labor market should probably catch it 2022.
Yeah, I mean, so just tactically, just so I want and I want people listening to understand that I am approaching this very very strategically. So in terms of this 4-day work week, we are doing an experiment with and we've had to do a lot of analyzing of the schedule to make this work. But we're doing an experiment with it the week of August 3rd and August 10th with 6 of our most experienced people. We're going to try it. And they've been involved with this process. I've been involving the employees and very transparent, and that's through the whole thing. But they're going to try it. We're going to see how it works. If it works, we're going to start it at the end of August. So part of the reason I'm doing that is because we really need the time to kind of work this out, because it's a major change, but it also gives us a little bit of time to see if the labor market starts to loosen up a little bit, which will give us a signal that maybe we can hold off on any more major changes. Does that make sense? So it's an exploratory time in August, but it's also giving us a chance to see if we start to get more quality candidates without switching to a 4-day work week. And maybe it's not something we do right now. So I think because the jury's still out on whether or not it's even going to work.
You're doing R&D. You're taking this as an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah,
it's going to be helpful regardless of what you decide to do. Just having that knowledge of, how it works and the benefits and the cost associated with it will help you make better decisions moving forward.
And it's actually opened my eyes to a whole, basically what we're working on right now is we're trying to develop KPIs, key performance indicators, around scheduling, which specifically scheduling in the company. And I know there's a way to measure the effectiveness of your scheduling and give it some kind of measure that is, statistics. And so the stats don't lie. And if I can come up with a KPI or 1 or 2 KPIs to track the effectiveness of my scheduling, that's going to really help with retention. So I'm trying to drive retention here. And so scheduling is such a huge issue, but it's not just about retention. It's also about efficiency. Because one thing we've learned too is that the number one driver of an efficiency of an employee is how familiar they are with the cleaning. So like in a smaller company, it's much, when you, the owner, have control over the scheduling, it's really easy to I always make sure that my same people go to the same houses and things like that. That's much easier to do. When you get to, over $2 million company, or even over $1 million, at that point, you're usually getting a little bit more hands off with the schedule. So how do you measure the consistency of how you're scheduling and the efficiency that you're scheduling with, making sure people aren't driving all over the place and that kind of thing? But I know for myself, I always put a big emphasis on drive time, and that's one thing to track. But what we've learned going through the schedule overhaul process over the past couple of weeks is what matters even more than drive time is how consistent you can keep people at the cleaning. Because if a cleaner learns a cleaning, particularly when they're solo, they get really fast. If they keep going there repeatedly for months on end, they get much faster and much more efficient at it because they know all the little ins and outs of the house. They know the parts they can I can go lighter here, or, this needs more attention. And the efficiency gains are incredible. Not only that, you have happier customers because the customers always want more consistency, and you have happier employees because they want more consistency in their schedule.
So what you're talking about is coming up with a metric where efficiency is component of it, defined by job time divided by work time, but also have a component that would be, to what degree are you getting the same technician back to the home on a regular basis? And the presumption is you would have a default cleaner assigned to a home. And so that would be a different score, and I guess you could have a composite score where you would look at those two metrics, and there could be some others that would factor into it. Customers have preferences in terms of arrival time, departure time. That would be a dimension that would be
That's a dimension. Yep.
part of your composite score. So you might have like 3 or 4 different scores and then a composite score, and whoever's doing your scheduling would be challenged to get the biggest composite score every day.
That's it. Yes, because you have to be, as you grow your company, you have to be able to effectively not only delegate the scheduling portion of it, but it's very difficult to effectively assess how good of a job the person doing that is doing. And often it's more than one person, right? So you'll have maybe your salesperson schedule some stuff. Maybe you have someone who does the schedule. Maybe your managers have their hands in it, and different companies structure this different ways. But to have, because scheduling is such an important driver of both customer and employee retention and a driver of efficiency, which therefore affects wages and profitability, to me, scheduling ought to have some kind of KPIs associated with it. So, and I don't want to, get too down a rabbit hole here, but that's just sort of, I guess it's a window into what we're working on and kind of the way we think here and kind of how we're trying to manage.
So you get together with like a dozen other cleaning businesses and you compete, and whichever company gets the best score for a month, everybody kicks in some cash and they get a trip to Hawaii.
Oh, that sounds great.
So Joe, as you're challenged with the scheduling and your clients are returning here and there, one returns from the north, one returns from the south. How are you handling the logistics with that?
RJ, to be honest with you, we really have not been handling that very well. I mean, I'd give us a C on that. Like, we're not, it's been catch as catch can. So you just hit the nail on the head. That's been the challenge, right? Customers are coming back sporadically. Employees are coming back sporadically. Everybody's schedule is different. A lot of people are cleaning houses they're not familiar with. And so it makes for it's challenging. But to answer your question, we haven't been doing a great job, but that's part of what this project is forcing us to do. Because it's we're saying, okay, by, August 17th, we're going to have new schedules for everyone, because we have enough customers coming back that we can make geographically efficient schedules, even if they're not the ones that people had before. We had 400 and change, recurring customers before COVID. So now we're at something like we're in the mid 200s. I would surmise. I don't actually have the count, but that's enough customers that we can make geographically efficient schedules now. We just have to put our minds to it. We have to make sure that's happening.
Would you also say that to the folks that are listening, don't beat yourself up too much on too many of the factors? Yes, be focused on some of the KPIs, but you really, in times like this, shouldn't be beating yourself up too much.
Oh, yeah. I'm really glad you said that, RJ, because, I remember it was about a month ago or so. I was just having a bad day, man. It was a bad couple of days, and I was really, really bummed out about, oh my God, we were at, this amount of revenue per week, and now we're less than half that. And it took me 13 years to get there. And now we're here. And, it's just I was having a bad day. I was just feeling like nothing was really working. We had 3 employees quit in 2 days. And then it was just everything felt like, you ever have one of those days where you kind of feel like it's falling apart?
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? But anyway, I called up a really good business advisor of mine, and we just had a chat. And she said just what you said, RJ. It was so helpful. Stop operating your business with a pre-COVID mindset. You have to remember that we are in an extraordinary time period right now, and there's unprecedented. And there's just so much instability everywhere, and everything is shifting and changing. So things are not going to be the same. And so you have to look at your business differently, and you have to cut yourself some slack.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. Yeah. And I've learned that lesson the hard way, and in terms of and I've come out of that, and now I'm looking at trying to get creative with what we can do, but not putting too much pressure on the same KPIs we were looking at before.
Well, we're getting up to the top of the hour, so we're gonna wind it down here. But one final thought: things are different now than they were pre-COVID, but I think it's safe to say things are going to be very much different, 3 months, 4 months from now than they are at the moment. So, all the things that we're doing now to make the changes because we have the opportunity to do it. We need to be keeping our eyes wide open because, things aren't going to go back the way they were, but we don't know, things aren't going to stay the way they are at the moment either. So,
yeah.
There's still a lot of opportunities out there.
And as we're choosing what to focus on in terms of what we're overhauling or what we're changing, I'm trying to do it. I think it's important to understand I'm doing it based on this is going to be good no matter what happens with coronavirus. Like these are all changes that are going to make our business stronger, make our business leaner, more efficient. And so it doesn't matter what happens with coronavirus and what the government decides to do or not do or whatever. These are just things that are going to make our business better. And that's really what I'm trying to focus on.
There are things that you should have done years ago. We all have those things, and just needed an event like this unprecedented event to motivate us to do it. Tomorrow, deal day. Be there. It's going to be fun. You have an opportunity to take advantage of some deals you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere, and you'll learn some things about some products and services that might very well be useful to you. On the Spot is Thursday. If you haven't subscribed to Cleaning Business Today, it is really, really easy. Email, first name, last name. You get our newsletter, updates, and Smart Business Moves. Here is our resource page with all our good stuff on it. Joe's going to share with us a link to the article where Fauci and
yes, I will.
Other folks are telling us how the only people they let into their home is their house cleaner, and that is useful information with a little bit of creativity. I think that we could use that to make our clients feel more comfortable. If Fauci's got house cleaners coming into his home, he knows more about this than most people.
That's right.
Thank you, Marla. Appreciate you being with us. Ernie's here. He's on vacation down at the beach this week. Thanks, guys.
Ernie has a question. So you are still at half staff? I think that's for Joe.
Yeah.
I'm a little more than half. Well, no, I actually am half. I'm exactly half right now. 75 out of 150. Yep. I am. We're working on it though. We're shooting for 90. So
you get there.
We'll get there.
$600 a week goes away, and the folks who've had their hours cut back at the hotels because they don't have the occupancy, you get some rocking candidates. Yeah. Joe, as always, man, you're great. Appreciate your help today. RJ, thanks for being my wingman here, being our Liz fill-in.
Liz wannabe, remember?
This could become a regular gig for you. You got to be careful.
Careful what you wish for, RJ.
Did you stop the recording?
No,
Liz will hear that.
Still live, so. But we're going to fix that right now. Take care. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 5.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, everyone. Yep.